Hello and welcome to the romance track here at Continual. And in honor of Pride Month, we're looking at LGBTQ paranormal romance. So all the things that go bump in the night and some cute guys that go bump in the night too. So while we're talking, before we get started, let's have the panelists introduce themselves, starting with Macy.
My name is Macy Blake, and I write a fantasy paranormal series that is called The Chosen Universe.
Okay. EJ?
I am EJ Russell. I write paranormal rom-coms, supernatural romantic suspense, contemporary rom-com, and just once historical.
Very good. Kiki?
I'm Kiki Burrelli, and I write paranormal romance and Omegaverse romance, just basically a lot of paranormal.
Okay. And Stephanie?
Hey, my name is Stephanie Burke. I'm also known as Flash. My pronouns are she and her. And I'm a USA Today bestselling author who has dropped over 100 books in my career. And one of the main things and my main focus has been paranormal romance. My first novel was like a paranormal romance. So I'm all in it for that.
Great. Victoria?
Hi, I'm Victoria. I write gay romance in most genres. Mainly paranormal, but I do romantic suspense. I've done a little bit of action adventure. I don't do cowboys. I wouldn't know what to do with one. I'm open to suggestions though. But yeah, paranormal's my jam in the main.
Okay. And Rachel?
Hi, I'm Rachel Langella, and I write a lot of paranormal romance with my partner, Ari McKay. We write LGBT romance across multiple genres, but we keep coming back to paranormal.
Okay. And I'm Gail Z and Morgan Brice. As Gail, I write epic fantasy, urban fantasy, near future, post-apocalyptic fiction, and more. But as Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. I've got 5 series now, and all of them have spooky chills and sexy thrills and lots of ghosts and paranormal stuff. So very solidly here. Which leads right into the first question of why paranormal? What is it about the things that go bump in the night that draw your attention? Rachel?
I've always been fascinated by horror, the supernatural, fairy tales, folklore. From a little kid, that has been my jam. You know, I just read every ghost story I could find. And it could be fiction, it could be, Carolina ghosts or, ghost pirates of the Carolina. It could be true ghost stories, folklore, and then, Stephen King, of course, it was an early influence. So, I've just always loved the genre as a reader from a very young age. And so it kind of became a natural choice when, I started writing. I don't know why. I kind of like the thrill of it. I kind of like being scared. It's a little bit of a release. I like horror movies for the same reason. It allows me to get my adrenaline pumping without the actual danger involved.
Okay. EJ?
Well, I suppose I was the kid who believed that her stuffed animals came to life when I was asleep. So I've always been hopeful that somewhere you could find that gateway to the magical universe. All you had to do was find the right door and you could walk through. And as a result, that's the kind of things I'm drawn to as a reader, like Rachel is, and also as a writer. I think I wrote my first paranormal story when I was 8 years old, after our class visited the dairy, and we had to write a story about it. And I wrote about a cow who believed that she was a whole series of different creatures and produced hybrid offspring. with, a fine disregard of the way that biology works. But my life-changing book that I read when I was 8 was a British children's fantasy about a little girl who runs into a dragon on her way to the greengrocer one day, and it pretty much changed my life, not only because it taught me how to interpret words through context, but it opened that door for me again. All you have to do is look in the right place and you can find the magic.
This is true. Macy?
My love of paranormal really started when I was in middle school. My best friend lived next door to her great grandmother's house, and she was convinced that it was haunted. So we would, people don't really know me, but I'm a wee bit sarcastic and just a wee bit sassy. So I know Sue knows me well. So I decided that I was going to sass the ghost of the house. And a few days later, we were out playing in the barn, and the barn door flew off the hinges and almost killed me. And no one to this day could figure out how it happened. But I knew I had sassed the wrong ghost. So I went to the grave of the person who had died in the house, because it was at the church cemetery, like down the road, which is where I went to church, and I took her flowers and I apologized to her. And ever since then, you can't convince me that ghosts aren't real, and I love all things that go bump in the night. I just am fascinated by what could be out there that we can't see.
Great story. Stephanie?
Okay, I'd have to go back as far as kindergarten. I read A Stitch in Time in kindergarten, and that was a profound effect on my life, because even in kindergarten, I had like a 12th grade reading comprehension level. So I was the little odd kid that was out anyway. And I never felt like I fit in anywhere. And then I read this book about a whole group of outcasts who got together and went on this amazing journey. I mean, this terrified me. It scared me, that part about the training with the ball, when that one person was off and they had to be taken in for retraining, when the darkness was taking over. Oh, that terrified me. But I loved it at the same time, because it's like, I felt for that kid, because that was me. That was the awkward kid who couldn't do anything right. And I felt so guilty about everything that was on with my parents. And I thought I would, because, nerdy kid, you didn't expect that. My other sisters are like, oh, big and popular and everybody loved them. And then you get me, the outcast. So it's like, I felt bad for my parents. I felt guilty. I felt this, I felt that, so many emotions. And then I realized at the end of this is a story. It's a wonderful journey, and it had a really positive ending. There has to be more out there like that. So I delved full face first into the paranormal and sci-fi. And then again, it's also the way I was raised, because my family is old Southern. So I grew up sitting around with my aunties, listening to the tales of the root workers about the hauntings and about the ghosts and the gumpies and everything else that was floating around that you had to be wary of at night. I love that stuff. I got the chance to sit up with the adults, and like you said, it's a safe thrill. I got danger, it was safe, and at the end, everybody got away, so it's a happy ending. So that kind of influenced what I wanted to write. Number one, because paranormal and sci-fi seemed to be where all the representation was, even if it wasn't full representation. There was no Black people. There was nobody who looked like me there. But there were people who were outcasts, who didn't feel that they felt in anywhere. And I could relate with that so much. So that's what I instantly was drawn to. Of course, as I got older, I read Pern and got into the romance and the erotic aspects of things that I write, and it expanded. But my one true wheelhouse, the one I love and I feel most comfortable with, is the paranormal and fantasy romance. Well, anything that's paranormal and fantasy, because that's where all the misfits get together to find their own kind. And I'm a misfit. I need to find my own kind. So boom, there I am. And I just find more of my kind every time I open up a new book. You see something, a concept that's not been explored before. And then you find the readers who actually love this stuff. And then you connect with these people, and then you find out the author might have had something that was similar to your upbringing, your childhood, your influences. And then boom, my world just expanded again. So then you don't feel so alone anymore. So, I mean, yeah, that's my wheelhouse.
That's a great story, Victoria.
Mine isn't that exciting. I should just say that now. I grew up on English Regency romance because that's what my mum read, and I used to steal her books even though she said I wasn't allowed to. And that's so that I went on to contemporary. I used to read the old. They used to call it Mills and Boon in England, which I suppose is Harlequin now. And it was all that stuff. So I came late to paranormal, but my favourite, one of my first authors was Mercedes Lackey, and I have got still, and they're still intact, which amazes me, these old 4 paperbacks of the Dragon Jousters. I mean, I've got them on the Kindle now and that, but I have to have read every one of those books about 200 times. And it's a kind of, somewhere inside me there's this person that wants to be as good as she is, and do the dragons like she did. I don't know whether I'll ever do that, but that's what I'd like to do.
Awesome. Kiki?
Like a lot of you guys, I grew up and from a young age really loved horror, and that continued pretty much, I mean, until now. I'm kind of a little bit more of a baby now with like the super scary stuff, but we're not going to talk about that. But I mean, past just loving being scared, and the thing about being scared is what you're doing is you're making stories right then. You're like, what if this happens? What if this happens? This is going to happen. So just, I mean, even just being frightened is sort of like prompting you to sort of like ask these what ifs, and that sort of like transitions into the other part of horror or paranormal, the supernatural, that I love. And it's just that the rules are different. There are no rules. You don't have to abide by the rules of this regular boring world. You can do and be and write and have people be able to do anything, and it's allowed. And I like that a lot.
Okay. And for me, you know, when I was in preschool, my favorite TV show was Dark Shadows. I don't know what my mother was doing letting me watch it, but there was, and it had vampires and witches and werewolves and all kinds of spooky stuff, and I was hooked. I was totally hooked. And it's never really left me. Other kids would get empty cardboard boxes and make them into boats and cars. I made mine into a coffin and rose out of it. And really haven't changed much in all the years since then. So it was just natural that I think most stories are more interesting with a ghost, a couple of dead bodies, maybe some zombies or a vampire. It just spices things up. Which leads me to the next question, which is, why cross paranormal and romance? So what's the connection there for you to put the two together into a story? Macy?
I think for me, it's that curiosity that I have about what else is out there and what is it that we don't know. So my favorite thing to write is a human finding out that the supernatural world really exists. And there's just something about that, finding out that dragons are real and werewolves are real. And oh my God, one of them happens to be your mate. And I just think there's just something truly magical about that. And there's just something really, I don't know, it makes you kind of like squishy and tingly to think that some big alpha wolf who can like sweep you off your feet and keep you safe, and you get this pack and all these, I just can't. I don't know. Like there's just something different about it that it sort of elevates the romance and lets you have all of these other things that are more than, you know? And I just think that's it's fun to write that, you know, that adds this level of adventure and curiosity and what ifs, like Kiki was saying, you know, and you just have to say, well, what if a human found out that dragons are real? You know, what would that look like? And so I love adding that element. What's that?
I said, you mean they're not? Oh, say.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna. They're absolutely real. So are vampires and werewolves. You can't convince me otherwise. It's fun. It's fun. So, but yeah, I think that's what it is. It's just that, you know, like Sue was saying, I grew up reading Harlequins and all of that, and then once I found out, like, wait a minute, alpha werewolf, vampire. I just love that level of adventure that it brought, and then you know, making you question like what else could be out there. It just was so much fun. So that's why.
Nice. Rachel?
It's two great tastes that taste great together. I love romance. I love supernatural, paranormal. I'm gonna smush them together. These have always been two of my favorite genres. I mean, I read romance. I didn't start reading romance as early as I started reading horror because, you know, they're some of the racier stuff. This was the 70s when it was really racy stuff. But I started reading romance at a pretty early age, and I loved that as much as I loved horror. And so for me, the two things have, you know, always blended well. There's nothing quite like having, you know, mortal peril nipping at your heels to fan the flames of love, and that sense of urgency. And so, yeah, for me, the two have always seemed to go hand in hand really well.
Okay.
God, we survived sex.
Yeah. EJ?
Well, I didn't start reading contemporary, as in, you know, modern romance, as opposed to, you know, Victoria Holt Gothics, which I read when I was in junior high, until the advent of the Kindle. And that was in like 2007, I think. And there was very little content that you could get on the Kindle at that time. And then Sarah Wendell from Smart Bitches Trashy Books put a bundle on there that included Suzanne Brockman's Prince Joe, which was one of her Harlequin contemporaries. And I was so excited by that, because it meant that there was a promise that you could depend on when you picked up a romance, that things would turn out well. And that's something I cannot watch a movie. My husband keeps trying to get me to watch Breaking Bad, and it's like, there's no way that can turn out well. I will not dive into that. And so really embracing that promise that things are going to turn out well. That's what I want to deliver. That's what I want to live. That's what I want to write. And because I also want that door into the magical world, of course, I want to marry those two things together. Two great tastes that taste great together. Rachel's right. And because I tend more towards rom-com, that's really important for me, that things turn out right. Not only they turn out right, but they turn out funny. So I can control that world when I write.
Okay. Stephanie?
Well, every major hit, every movie, every popular book, anything that slammed into mainstream and went full tilt to 1,000 has romance in it. Even things that are not supposed to. I remember watching the 10 Commandments as a child and watching the Moses scene and going, that's in my Bible. Why is this here? But people laughed it up. They ate it up. Every major popular thing that we had that did very well and with readers and people who are going for their entertainment has romantic elements in it, whether you want to believe it or not. Luke Skywalker was kissing his sister. And then it kind of flipped over to Han Solo when they figured out they're going to be actually making more movies. But there was romance in there, and it really didn't need to be. It was exciting enough on its own, but it would not have been as popular if it did not have those romantic elements. As a society, we are taught that romance is the ultimate go. So as people, I think we like that human connection because it's the easiest form of human connection to each other. It's something that everybody, no matter what walk of life you come from, can understand. And I love the fact that you could take something, like you said, two great tastes that taste great together, that would be so conflicted and wouldn't make sense, like aliens landing and then actually having them falling in love with a human being. Why, that just pushes up that relationship. We live on drama too. We want the culture war, the culture clashes, the misunderstandings. We want the arguments. We want that snappy dialogue between our protagonists. We want all of that. And what better encapsulates all of that than, a romantic relationship? So it just naturally blends itself, because romance does a lot of things. It can put paid, that's the end of the story. Boom, he falls in love with her. Boom, the whole story is over with. Or it could be a driving force that pushes their relationship further. Or it could be the reason the whole drama and conflict exists in the first place. Romance is so versatile. It is there for us. It is there waiting for us. Even people who swear up and down that they hate romance will go back and talk about how they love that whole scene between Khal Drogo and the moon, the son of his life, and friggin' Game of Thrones movie. And it's like, you don't like romance. No, but you like their relationship. That's a romance. It's a tragic romance, but still a romance in there. So, I mean, it's something that's just part of human nature. And when you tap into that, that's one of the things that we can easily understand about each other. And it also makes makes us relatable. So given the opportunity to combine some of the things that I love, oh yes, I was all in for it. Let's have that dragon come down and fall in love with somebody. Let's have that alien come down. One of the funniest books I've written to date had to be about a tentacle monster who was hiding the fact that he was a tentacle monster in society, helping the government on his side, and his intersex boyfriend. And then the whole beginning of this was them, I need to tell you something. And one getting everything wrong. You're cheating on me, you're married, you're this, you're that, you're this. No, I'm a tentacle monster. And he's like, what? And I have like 20 penises in my pants. Wow. And his response was, I thought I had it bad being intersex. So that thing right there, it fits in any type of situation you want to put it in, that whole romantic drive. Because let's face it, if there were no human interaction and human contact with the entertainment we like, it wouldn't be entertainment. We wouldn't touch it. So given the ability to combine some things and some wacky situations and some impossible schemes together with some romance, oh yeah, I was there for that. So I fell right into it, took off running and never stopped.
That works. Victoria?
What she said.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
Just basically, I have very ideal book boyfriends, sexy shifters. They can't just be hot and wonderful. They also have to turn into animals, or they have to be part of the undead, or they always have to have something a little bit extra. I don't like ghosts though. I don't know. I think I read a book when I was a teenager, and it was supposed to be a love story. And in the end, the book, I can't even remember who wrote this book. I think I must have like blocked it. It caused me so much trauma, because at the end of the book, the teenage girl who was kind of falling in love with this, or actually the ghost was falling in love with her, I should say. She sort of like blew him off and went out with the boyfriend that were at school, and I'm like, what the heck? This isn't a love story. If it was a love story, I would have found some way to make him undead, or there would have been some way that they could have got together. And like I said, I was traumatized by that at a very early age. So I have great standards for my book boyfriends. They've both got to be alive most of the time, and they've got to get the girl or the boy, or any combination of that at the end. That's an absolute given. I won't read it unless I know it's going to be happy ever after.
I actually did just read a story with a ghost boyfriend, and it did end up being happily ever after, and they actually had some pretty hot moments. So anything is possible with enough imagination. Kiki?
Mm-hmm.
So loving to be afraid is really only half of why I loved horror growing up. And the other half was all of the sex, because there is more sex in horror than any other like genre of anything. And so for me, sort of sex and romance and horror always were hand in hand together. And then as I grew up in my writing and was trying new things. Like Macy, I became really attracted to the idea of this super bodied, super powered sort of alpha dude who, like, there's just something so soothing about so much like aggro. And yeah, it just makes sense, like you said, two tastes that belong together.
I've always loved the paranormal, and then the idea of having a paranormal plot and having two hot guys that fall in love with each other. I mean, how could it be any better? And so I've just really enjoyed bringing those two things together, because a lot of pretty much everything on the Gail side doesn't really have major romance or any on-screen sex. That's the Morgan stuff. And so writing that is so much fun, and having the characters get together, and then I do a lot of established couples, so having them learn how to be a couple while they're fighting, ghosts, vampires, witches, wizards, whatever they're fighting. It just adds a little extra effort to those relationship goals, especially since there's usually one of them who didn't really believe in anything until it nearly killed them, and now they've got to help stop it. And so they're building a relationship at the same time. They're going, wait, vampires are real? You're kidding me, right? No, there's one over there. We need to kill it. Okay. Just sort of ups the stakes, every pun intended. So yeah, it was just a natural combination for me, and I'm having a blast writing it. Now, we all have all sort of creatures and cryptids and critters in our stories. What are and I hate to use the word monster, that's such a prejudicial term, but what kind of creatures do you feature in your romance books? EJ, can you hear me? Oh, she might not. We'll come back to her. Victoria.
I'm sorry, my internet cut out and I didn't hear the question.
Oh, what type of creatures, things that go bump in the night, do you use in your stories?
I'm going to have to.
Did I lose you, or did you lose me? Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So Victoria, what kind of creatures do you have in your stories?
Well, actually, before I kind of go on to the creatures, you were talking about baddies and what sort of baddies as well when you started asking that question. And my immediate first thought was the human's always the baddie. The human is generally always the baddie. Sometimes I have some of my urban fantasy books. I have both characters that have some sort of gift, but I don't like making the monster out of the different one. I like the monsters to be Mr. Nice, calm, and quiet, and that and that kind of thing to stir up trouble. And sorry, what was your other question? Because I kind
of just what kind of creatures? What kind of creatures do you like to use in your stories?
Well, my two urban fantasy series, not my Paranormal and my Shifters, they are, one of them is all humans that were born with extra DNA based abilities. So that's where they're a bit like kind of Superman, extra sort of powers, that sort of stuff. And the other one is time travel, but based on the Knights of the Round Table, Camelot, and all that sort of stuff. And they're made immortal, and they come and fight Mordred and Morgana in 21st century New York. And then they all have to meet the other half. So that's where the humans in their group. Those are the two urban fantasy ones that I do.
Okay, how about you, Kiki?
I've been basically just doing paranormal since I've started. So I've kind of done a lot of monsters, creatures. Most of them are shifters, wolf shifters, bear shifters. But then I have my Welcome to Morningwood series that is just kind of like the odd shifters that you don't usually see, like the tarantula shifters and the giraffe shifters. But that's a little bit more like paranormal comedy, I would think. But I also do demons, angels, cambium, Nephilim, mermaids. I basically, nothing's off limits. No.
Isn't it if you're doing tarantulas?
She's really cute. Her name is Sophie, and she's a tarantula shifter, and she's just a little bit sad.
Oh, really? Hairy legs?
No. And she just has two.
Macy, what about you?
Yes is the answer, because I pretty much write them all. In my chosen world, I have a lot of shifters and werewolves, bears, lions, but I also have dragons and griffins and hellhounds. I have fae creatures, all different types. My current book has the Prince of Hell as the main character. So yeah, pretty much cover pretty much anything I can find in mythology, or anything I can shift. I'm snagging it, and any sort of fantasy mythological creature, I borrow those too.
Okay. EJ?
Okay, I missed the question because my internet cut out. So
What kind of creatures are in your stories?
Okay. Well, my myth matched world started out with Celtic fae, and I sort of it's now expanded to include, incubi, different kinds of shifters, including bears, kangaroos, beavers, weasels, pretty much anything you can name. My Enchanted Occasion series sort of went towards the Norse direction at first, but it's sort of noodling around in Northern European. The latest one had a Germanic creature called the Klabauterman, who is invisible, an invisible person who lives on board ship and only becomes visible when the ship is about to sink, which I thought was very interesting, kind of like a canary in the coal mine kind of character. And the last book I wrote involved Greek gods. So, anything, mythology throwdown, I'm there for it.
Stephanie?
I can't think of anything I haven't written. I mean, we have snakes, we have 2 penises. That's always fun. I actually have the How Not to Date series, which was started to see how many different types of shifters I can throw in there. And my readers would try to throw me curveballs. So there's like How Not to Date a Skunk, How Not to Date a Spider is coming up. But I can honestly say that I actually seek out these weird creatures and shapeshifters. And I hop through mythology from as many cultures as I can grab. Introduce me to something new, I'm going to immediately delve into their mythology, because that's how you tend to learn a lot about how a culture developed. And I'm going to play in your wheelhouse just because I can. So, I mean, I cannot think of right now anything that I wouldn't be willing to do, but we've done skunks and dragons and all kinds of tentacle monsters and all kinds of aliens and phoenixes, and I've pregnant men, and just anything that would capture my attention. I'll come up with an idea oftentimes, and then I'll research it to see if there's a mythological base behind the idea I had. And then I'll delve with a little bit of them, mixed in with a little bit of what I do. So, I mean, I'm willing and open to just about anything. Toss me a new shapeshifter. Yeah. Toss me a new creature. Toss me an alien from another planet, or something from the past, or something that supposedly went extinct thousands of years ago. I'm there for it. And if I'm going to be there for it, I'm definitely going to try to write it. So, I mean, I can pull ideas and my creatures from just about any place. And Victoria's, like you were saying, oftentimes when I write, the human beings are monsters, because even the animals that we see, that we base a lot of our shapeshifter culture on, have more benevolence than what we have for each other and for other things. So oftentimes in my books, the bad guys are almost humans, because that makes sense. I mean, because seriously, if you have mastered intergalactic travel, you're coming here? For what?
Yeah.
That goes along with the series I'm trying to write now called 1 out of 10 Would Not Do Again, about other visitations to Earth and how they didn't go so well. Because, yeah, in my world, the humans are almost always the monsters. But I mean, you toss me at any type of creature or anything that can be pulled into imagination, you have to think that maybe somebody else imagined it as well. So let me go and see what they did and how they managed to work out these little foibles. And then I'll put my own twist on it or my own spin on it. And I just love the challenge of it. So yeah, give me something new. I mean, slimy creatures, things that don't look like they're humans. I'm there for it. I live for that stuff. Give it to me.
Rachel?
Well, we have our Blood Bathory series, which was predominantly vampires and shifters of various types, not just werewolves, but all kinds of different animal types. And that was a trilogy. And then we have the Asheville Arcana trilogy, which has a lot more of an open world. There's vampires, there's half angel or angelic descendants, there's shifters, there's dryads, there's elves, there's mages, witches, dragons in hiding, and they're fighting demons. So this series is more of a mixed bag.
Okay. I've got the Fox Hollow series, which has shifters, and yeah, there are wolf shifters and fox shifters and a bear shifter. But I also love to throw in there's a otter shifter who finds true love with a beaver shifter, neither of whom fit in well with their families. There's a squirrel shifter who is just so much fun because he's such a firebrand. He's a sassy little thing. Nobody's going to get in his face. And so it's really fun because they can also talk to their animal side when they're in human form. And so they're getting this constant narrative from their animal side, and they usually don't agree. So that's really fun with that. In the other series, usually somebody's got some form of clairvoyance, psychic, psychometric, who can read the magic or haunting of an object by touching it. Some people who can use magic in various forms. And then there's usually a partner who's a skeptic, or maybe who can see ghosts but can't do the other stuff. And so it's always fun to play those off each other. But creature wise, yeah, the shifters are so much fun because you can do so many things with it and take it anywhere your imagination can go. So folks, believe it or not, we are almost at the end of the hour. So I want to do one more time around so you can tell everybody what you've got coming out soon, coming out now, coming out in the recent past, and where to find you online. Macy?
Yes, so my new release is Hell Breaks Loose. It's the 4th book in my Hellhound series. Just came out last week. Well, whenever we're watching this, it came out at the end of May. And then up next, I'm debuting a new series in August called The Chosen Champions. And I'm really excited for everybody to meet this new, it's sort of a spec ops take on the shifters in my world. So I'm having a lot of fun with this team of sort of paranormal special agents. And, so it's really fun. So that's what's up next.
And where can we find you online?
Yes, you can find me. The best place to find me is actually in my Facebook group, which is Macy's Moonlighters, and it's an open group, so you would be able to search Macy's Moonlighters. Also, you can find out what's coming up with me on my website, which is macyblake.com.
Okay, Kiki?
In June, I have coming the first book in my Welcome to Resurrection Road series, which will tie up the Wolves of World that included Wolves of Walker County, Wolves of Royal Pains, and now Wolves of Resurrection Road. The fact that it's named Pride is just completely coincidental because this book was supposed to come out a long time ago. So it was just kind of lined up nicely. You can find me at my Facebook group, Kiki's Den, and then my website, kikiburrelli.com, or just come onto Facebook and message me anywhere. I don't care.
Okay, EJ?
I don't have anything scheduled for upcoming release now, but I'm in the process of edits on a cozy-ish mystery spin-off of the Myth-Matched World. The first one is called 5 Dead Herrings, and hopefully it will be out within the next couple of months. The last book that I released was in March, and that was Purgatory Playhouse in the Magic Emporium series. You can find me in my Facebook group, Reality Optional, or on my website, ejrussell.com.
Okay, Victoria?
My last completed series was The Guardians of Camelot, which is the English Knights in New York. My new series, which the first book should be out the end of June, possibly the beginning of July, is my Omega Rescue series. The first book that is free on Prolific Works, like an intro to the series, that's Baby and the Bear, and the new novel will be called Baby and the Wolf. And Victoria Sue's Crew on Facebook. I'm not clever enough to do TikTok. So I'm kind of old-fashioned and I tend to stick to Facebook, but that's the best place to find me.
Okay. Stephanie?
Okay, I have just went up today for pre-order is the second of the Gargoyle Song series, and it's called Unis. The Gargoyle Song series is about a gargoyle who came here from another dimension with her 7 lovers to pick up like maybe one more and handle her business. It's a bloody blood count book, but we have all types of gargoyles and they shift and they are amazing. So the second book, which is called Unis, went up for pre-order today. And just about 2 weeks ago, I had dropped Demonium Rex, aka Buttercup, which is the funny story about Incubus, who's trying to make a connection with this human being, but she's a writer. So all the voices in her head are just characters that she's trying to write. And she renames him Buttercup. And the name stuck. He's the king of the Incubuses, whose new name is Buttercup. That definitely is straight up comedy. You can find me at Stephanie Burke on Facebook, Flashy Cat on Twitter. My website is StephanieBurke.online. You can find me there. I swear I'll get to updating it. I need to update that. But generally I hang out on Facebook and Twitter, and you can find me there, or email me directly and I'll get back with you. You can also find all my contact and all my social media links on my website.
Great. Rachel?
Let's see. Our most recent release was also part of the Magical Emporium, and that was Stop Dragging My Heart Around back in April, and it was set in the Asheville Arcana sandbox. We don't have anything scheduled, but we are working on some things. And you can find me and Ari, both of our brands, our lines are on arimckay.com. I've been kind of on a social media hiatus because of, the day job. But when I'm active, I'm usually on Instagram.
Okay. You can find me at gailzmartin.com and morganbrice.com. All of my social media is a variation of those names. So as long as you remember the Z and spell Brice with an I, you're fine. My reader group is Worlds with Morgan Brice. And let's see, my most recent release was also part of the Magic Emporium series, Haven. And then I also had I was also part of the Fables Retold collection with 6 full books that were by 6 different authors that were retelling of classic fairy tales with male-male romance twists. And I've got a goat shifter story in that one that I really enjoyed putting together. Both Haven and my story for Fables are set in the Fox Hollow world. And right now I'm working on the next book in the Treasure Trail series. But mostly you can find me here at Continual. So folks, thank you very much for a wonderful panel and a wonderful discussion of paranormal romance. And thanks to everyone who's watching and listening. We'll have more romance here on Continual, so we'll see you online.